Congressman Matt Gaetz. The whole world is talking about what Matt Gaetz did this week in vacating the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Everybody's asking, what's the plan? What's the plan? Matt, I want to start here with a kind of an oddball question. Are you familiar with the show Game of Thrones?
I watched up until the Red Wedding. Kind of after that, too many characters and too much of a time commitment. So I'm like an early Game of Thrones guy.
Gotcha. I can't remember when Littlefinger said it, but at one point, Littlefinger, Peter Baelish said, chaos is a ladder. And that's why I embrace what you're doing. I don't think people recognize the time that we're in, that the left is promoting chaos and using it to achieve their goal. And I think we have to do the same on the other side. That's why I love what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And I hope it's a ladder for the American people and their agenda, because there is a sophisticated system in Washington, D.C. that takes all of the major spending decisions we have to make, and it backs those decisions up against shutdown politics and the end of the year and holidays, in the hopes that a very small group of people can make the major decisions regarding the entire $7 trillion federal budget. And when they do that, they're able to market to lobbyists and special interests that their authority and power is supercharged. And thus, they're able to extract more money from those lobbyists and special interests. There are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of IOUs on K Street right now, where the lobbyists all have their offices, that are about as useful as Confederate money with Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership. Because to his, give the guy his due, he raised $500 million for Republican campaigns, but a lot of that money came with strings attached. So here's my goal. Here's the plan. And I really appreciate that question, by the way, Jason, because it's what people have been asking. Rip the Band-Aid off. Remove McCarthy. Then the next step of the plan has to be to install someone who is more conservative and more effective as a fighter. Now, the two options that we have currently are Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise. I don't think there's a single American who would argue that Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise are not more conservative and more dogged fighters than the former speaker. So when we get that person in place, we have to then really advance on using the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. I mean, here we are 9 months into the Congress, and we haven't even sent Hunter Biden a single subpoena. Regardless of how you feel about the evidence, it's easy to look at what Democrats did in their first year, dragging Donald Trump Jr. before the Congress 3 times over nothing, and see that we're not quite as aggressive and vigorous as we should be yet. So Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, both great men, amazing men of family and faith. They've got huge trust and confidence throughout the Republican conference. I think either of those men would be the next step in the plan, and then use that power subpoena and power of the purse.
It sounds like you're not ready to commit to Scalise or Jim Jordan. You don't have a preference either way?
Well, I'm very close to both men. Matter of fact, I think of Steve Scalise every night when I go home, because he gave me this giant rack of Louisiana Cajun spices, and I love to cook. And so every time I'm whipping up some redfish or some chicken, I always think about him and the good that he's done. And I mean, gosh, man, if they'd have shot me in this place, I'd probably be out of here. But that guy, his journey from being shot to coming back to leading to taking on extra responsibilities, it's just an inspirational human story, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And then Jim Jordan, I hero worship Jim Jordan. He is my personal mentor. I serve on the Judiciary Committee with him. I've tried to style a lot of my approach to the Congress in the image of Jim Jordan. And so it's really hard to pick among two great choices, but my personal decision will come down to spending. I want to hear these candidates say, we are done governing by continuing resolution and omnibus bill. Because for me, this was never personal. It was about spending, and we can't just keep running $2.2 trillion annual deficits atop a $33 trillion debt. So that'll be the deciding factor to me, but I'm really heartened to know we've got two amazing choices, two amazing men, and I actually think God's will be done here.
Friend of mine that's passionate watcher of this show, watched me defend you this week, sent me not an angry text, but sent me a text saying, hey, where was all this passion about the budget and spending from Matt Gaetz when Trump was spending all of this money? Did he speak out then? What would you say to him?
Well, I would point that person to my voting record. I voted against 2 of the Trump omnibus bills. I voted against 10 of the Trump continuing resolutions. I fought with Paul Ryan so much over budgets that were not balanced that Paul Ryan threw me off of the budget committee. Imagine that, getting thrown off the budget committee by Paul Ryan because you wanted a budget. So I've been pretty consistent that I think we have to live within our means. My background before I got into Congress was in the state legislature in Florida, where you don't have a choice on a balanced budget. You find out how much you brought in, and then you figure out what you're able to pay for based on that revenue estimate. Here, we've designed a system where no one is responsible for the spending. The Congress can blame the system, the president can blame the Congress, and meanwhile, we are living in a time where in 99% of American counties, the average American income will not support the purchase of a home. We live in a time where every month Americans are paying $700 more for the exact same goods and services that they got a year ago. And the government spending is driving that inflation. And so we can connect the pain people are feeling to the bad decisions in Washington, and we can do something about it. We can solve it. For everyone that wants to criticize me as a tear it down, chaos, nihilist, I voted for the 4 single subject spending bills that came forward for our veterans, for our military, for our border patrol, so that we had a USDA, so we had safe food in our food supply. But what I am not here to do is just to continue to give the traditional increase to the Department of Education and the Department of Labor and the EPA when they're not even forced to come forward and demonstrate the efficacy of the spending that we seem to just rubber stamp.
So clearly you're going to take a position on spending. Are there any other promises you're looking for from Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise or whoever wants this speaker job? Any other promises that you'll be looking for from them?
I just know both men so well. I've served with both men for 7 years. I don't need to extract a promise to know that they are going to put the people of this country first. So I don't worry about, really hard guardrails for either of those men, because I've seen their mettle. I've seen how they prioritize things. And for me, it's just, and it's not even, about whether or not one of them is a more dynamic person. It's about just who has the better plan. At the end of the day, you got to look at what plan is more likely to get us back into fiscal sanity. And that's who I'll support. But I got to say, when I filed the motion to vacate, all you could hear on corporate media was, oh no, Matt Gaetz is going to elect Hakeem Jeffries speaker. What if it's Don Bacon or one of the pro-Trump impeachment Republicans? Or that's all noise. We're now essentially at a 2-man race. Both men are wonderful. Both men would do a great job. Let's do everything we can to rally around them, support them, and then give them the tools to actually put some downward pressure on the harm this Biden government is doing to people.
Look, you guys are really challenging the establishment on both sides. I love it. It's great. Did you read, or I'm sure you heard about Karl Rove's piece in the Wall Street Journal? Hey, Matt Gaetz is just looking for attention. And that's what I expect from the establishment, because, again, they want the status quo. They want the uniparty, and we don't. And we love you being a maverick, you willing to take this chance, but there's going to be a lot more blowback towards Matt Gaetz. Are you ready for that?
Jason, my friend, I can take it. I'm built for the battle. I've been through tougher fights than this. And like Karl Rove, when was the last time Karl Rove was right about something? Like, this was a guy who had his best ideas in 2000 and 2004, and now is just like a vestige of the ghost of political Christmas past. The future requires us to have a higher ambition, a vigor to win the fight. Karl Rove presided over a lot of American decline when he was working in the White House, so I don't take my P's and Q's from him. What I see is that the American people know we can do better. And that will mean I'll take some slings and arrows. I'm ready for them because I know where the people stand. And at the end of the day, we just got to save the country. It doesn't really matter about it. We're all just passing through time. Me, Kevin McCarthy, it is America that must endure. And I want to do my part to make sure she does.
So I want to play a clip from my show either yesterday or the day before. I can't remember. But we were talking about you and all the people. What's the plan? What's the plan? What's the plan? And you've articulated what the plan is. But I think there's a deeper plan that I'm excited about as it relates to doing things that draw attention that make the American public have to address some of these serious issues that we've been avoiding. And again, when you kick up the kind of dust you did, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, look, man, we keep sending money to Ukraine. Hey, look, we're not securing our border. I want to play a clip from Royce White that was on this show that I thought was very profound in trying to explain the upside to what you're doing.
Well, first I want to say I reject on face value these people who come out and say, well, what's the plan? What's the plan? The plan is to tell people what their plan is.
Yeah, Royce is great. I shared that clip. I thought the analysis was spot on. And, you know, the Bible tells us a lot about this, Jason, that in times where man is disoriented or when we've lost our way, that the kings do emerge, that people come forward with wisdom, with personal characteristics, and with a renewed sense of dedication. And there is divine providence in all of this. I know that God's will be done when we have a new speaker and we have someone who is really ready to help us lead the country and to be fighters for the tens of millions of Americans who rest all of their hope in the House of Representatives alone in a world in which the Biden administration is turning against people and where the Senate is unreliable to put the people's interest first. So, but there is something about when you have dynamic moments, you're able to bring people in to the argument. Because what the establishment wants is they want calm waters all the time. They want everything to be nice and smooth, and then you won't realize that underneath the water, you know, bad stuff is going on, and there's a Chernobyl down there, and it could really cause catastrophic impact. You see, I think sometimes you got to have some turbulent waters so that people wake up and say, all right, what's going on here? What's it really going to take to secure this border? We have to get so serious about reducing spending in order to save the dollar from losing its status as the global reserve currency. And yeah, I mean, none of us want to sleepwalk into World War III with Russia over which dude in a tracksuit gets to run Crimea. And if we can broaden the discussion to more of our fellow Americans, I actually think that will make lawmakers less of a lagging indicator in our politics. It seems like the people really lead, and the people we call leaders, they follow the people. So let's get the people engaged, informed, and at the table for the decision-making process.
Finally, Matt, I read the story this week that everyone seems to be ignoring it. I know it just came out yesterday, but to me, it's a bombshell. What Newsweek is reporting about what the
Yeah.
FBI targeting Trump supporters. I hope you've seen this story.
Yeah.
It hits like a ton of bricks to me. I hope that this is an issue that is taken up by the Speaker and the House. This is unbelievably unfair. The FBI targeting Trump supporters, continuing to frame Trump supporters as potential terrorists over January. I hope this is something the House takes up very seriously.
No, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because it's not enough just to have the hearings and yell at the Attorney General and make the FBI director look bad. You have to cut off the money. This is very serious. The only way to stop the targeting of Americans as a consequence of their political beliefs is to stop funding that. Because whatever laws you create or guardrails you establish, they blow through those. I mean, the FBI was violating the FISA law 38 times an hour during the period of time that the Inspector General was watching them. So they will not follow the law. You have to cut off the money. And that's why these single subject bills that I talk about are so important, because if you're just taking one big vote up or down on the entire government, you're not going to get in there and look at those specific task forces at the FBI that have done these things that are now being exposed. You have to have them stand before the committees and subcommittees of jurisdiction and defend each program and each task force and each agency. And then our investigative work can inform whether or not we're going to fork over the check to keep that stuff going. But under a continuing resolution and an omnibus, those folks always win, and we get targeted as a consequence. So it's bad news. I will tell you, the reason I'm able to have this discussion with you today is because a senior FBI official, Elvis Chan, for the third time canceled his deposition before the Judiciary Committee. I was supposed to be asking him questions right now about the censorship industrial complex, where people at the FBI were trying to get Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, Google, all to try to disfavor any content that was dangerous or extreme, but largely it was just people expressing a conservative viewpoint.
Matt, thank you for the time. Tell the other 7 that I'm calling the Gaetzful 8. Tell them thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are speaking for the people, and we need that. You're a breath of fresh air and a ray of hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. We'll keep fighting.